Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This week's episode is about my Floductivity coaching concept. I bring on my friend Denise, and we break down ultimately where she's blocked and how we can propel her forward in her life. What is Floductivity? Floductivity is a path, a welcoming embrace of your intuitive intelligence, cycle reconnection, and enriched abundance that prepares you for the synchronicities of a higher level of consciousness. It is more than a daily practice, it is a life practice. It's rooted in new age and conventional modalities that work together to connect you to yourself and boost productivity throughout your life. We use human design, lunar and cycle vitality, and astrology. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to get started. Welcome to Floductivity, a place to inspire and empower beings to embrace self-love and self-development for an achievable balance of productivity. I share different ways to come back to your intuition through spirituality, self-care, human design, cycle planning, wellness, and everything in between. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been here with me before, thank you so much for coming back. I'm so excited to join you in this journey as we learn together. Hi, Denise. Welcome to the show.
I am excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So this episode, we are doing a little bit of coaching Denise. She filled out a form prior to this conversation to give me a better idea of the different aspects in her life that I can kind of help guide regarding her cycle, astrology, human design, and possibly even the moon. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the cycle, because understanding our body is the most important thing. And I just want to remind anyone who doesn't experience a menstrual cycle, this can also be placed with a moon cycle as well. The power is still the same. It lines up almost identically. And so when we can harness that energy, it can make our life have a little bit more ease and purpose when we flow with that energy. So before we did this interview, we had a little chat last week about just a couple little things that may help her in using her cycle in her daily routines. And so one of them was keeping a morning routine list close by. So when she wakes up, she can do something that feels good to her, because she said that she doesn't want to have a strict routine every day. And so, for example, something that would be great for the morning for springtime or follicular phase would be maybe a higher self meditation, visualizing who that person is and how you can step into that power. As for summer or ovulation, a little morning dance to get your body moving is a great way to kind of get that movement going. And for fall or the luteal phase, energy protection, meditation, or even journaling is a great way to start the day, especially if you're going into a job that deals with different energies of people. And then for winter or menstruation, a simple meditation or even foam rolling will help detoxify the body. So just kind of having a different idea of what can help you in that state, and then having a visual to say, okay, what am I going to do today, instead of I have to do this today to start my day out right. So that was something that we chatted about. And then I wanted to give her a little suggestions of different things that can kind of help align with that. So how does that sound for you, Denise?
I love that. I love about myself that I intuitively follow what feels good to me at the time, but it does run me into a little bit of decision fatigue. So like having a list of things to choose from really helps with that, you know?
Great. I would even do that if you are someone that wants to move your body throughout the month. Also, starting to keep track of the workouts you really enjoy doing in each phase, because it makes it less, I have to do this, more, ooh, this feels good for my body right now. And so I think it's finding that right movement. You know, I used to do HIIT workouts because I thought I had to, and then I got burnt out from it. And so just really tuning into the body of like, how did that make me feel? Great. Let's put it on that list, and kind of even breaking it down per phase, because we are meant to do different things throughout our phase. And so to make that a little easier. So I can't wait to check in to see how that goes for you.
I love that.
Another thing that I wanted to touch on the cycle is implementing boundaries was something that had come up, and focusing on the details and even that smaller picture work. And the best time to do that is in your fall or luteal phase. Starting around day number 17 to day number 22 is like the best time that fall really peaks in. You might not get into those type of tasks a little bit later in the fall phase, but that is when it starts. So just kind of keep that in mind, and knowing that when that time comes around, that is when boundaries are the most important. We're much more vulnerable. Our emotions are a little bit up and down. And so I find that I get less resentful when I personally make sure that the boundaries that I know will set me off the deep end are set beforehand, and that the expectations are ahead of time. So I hope that little tidbit helps.
So much. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really just figuring out where in your cycle certain things really fit into place. And then they don't feel like tasks, they just feel like a part of your life and your cycle. And then it just becomes a little bit more in the flow of it versus like, I have to do this, I have to do that. Because I feel like when people put the task manager onto it, it becomes less enjoyable. And a lot of this is to make life more fulfilling.
Right. If it becomes this to-do list that you have to check off, you're sort of missing the entire point, you know?
I mean, it is like trying to find your flow in life, and it's getting away from that hustle mentality and just understanding your body and like really making a point. And so another thing that I suggest for anyone who is trying to understand their cycle, the easiest thing to do is get a blank calendar and write out day number 1 is the first day of your bleed, and kind of go from there. And then just get a blank journal and say, today is day number 17. I am ready to take over the world. I want to do all the things. And then that way, you know, on day number 17 or around it, you're ready to do all the things. Another aspect for me personally that I just like to mention is that my cycle changes every other month. So also keep that into play, is that sometimes you might have more energy one month and then the next month you don't. So you might even want to kind of keep track of that every other month to see where that focus is. Because again, every cycle is different and every person is different.
That's so interesting. I love that idea.
It took me a long time of tracking to figure that out, but it took me tracking. And so that's really the first step in all of it, is understanding what days mean for you and what phases mean for you, and that you leave room for adjusting because it can always change.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful because I tend to be the type of person who, when I'm in that like summer phase or active phase, I will make tons of plans for fall me, or even worse, like winter me, who doesn't want to do them, you know? So just kind of knowing that and being able to plan my busyness accordingly so that I can enjoy it.
Definitely. I think that was my biggest takeaway from tracking my cycle, is a few of my tips for any hairdressers listening in. And Denise is a hairdresser, and I'm sure I've shared some of these tips with her before. If you need to really sit down and plan out your schedule, you should do that in your follicular or your spring phase. If you want to stay late and really do all the things, if you're trying to record content for your socials, you should do that in summer and ovulation. If you want to kind of go back through and do bookkeeping and focus on all those details, that is in the fall or the luteal phase. And you should not come in early, stay late, even budge on your boundaries in your winter, because you're going to be mad that you did that. But again, everybody's cycle is different. But once you know that, you can really use your cycle as a superpower. And that's really my goal in a lot of this, is so many people find it a burden and have issues around their cycle. And I can't say this is going to heal everyone, but I can tell you from my own personal journey of healing, I did heal my cycle through honoring it, giving it space and letting it do its thing, and saying, this is who I am during this time, and I'm going to honor that, instead of fighting through it and pushing through and being kind of left depleted. And no one wants that version of me. So I'm going to stop bringing that version of myself.
I think that is such incredible advice for anybody, not just hairstylists, but hairstylists. We do have the good fortune to be able to make our own schedules, and all of those types of activities that you listed need to be done. And I just think it's so beautiful to be able to put them in their right space so that I'm vibing with that activity when I'm doing it. And like you said, there's sometimes I don't mind staying late for somebody, you know, it's no problem. It's really no big deal. And there's other times that I would be incredibly resentful, and being able to plan that out and open up or my schedule, or really hold strict to those boundaries at other times. Because as you said, My job and what used to be your job is so intensely personal. You're interacting so much with other people's energy that I really don't like to bring anything other than the absolute best version of myself to work because it is so intimate.
It is. And like when someone sits down in your chair, they're ultimately giving you the most trust. You're physically touching them, you're emotionally touching them. And I can tell you, I've learned so many secrets and deep down things about my clients because they felt that trust. And so to be able to give that space for them, I'm sure they can feel it. And that's why you are who you are and you're all booked. And it's one of those that the proof is in the pudding.
Well, thank you. I really do try. I try very hard, but sometimes I do have to fake it. And so I love this idea of cycle planning so that I can be more protective of my energy when it makes sense to do so.
Good. I'm glad you're open to it. I think sometimes people are a little off holding. Like, what do you mean? I've had this thing my whole life. What do you mean it's a gift? And I'm like, just hear me out. Just a little bit. Just figure out how you can implement it in your life. Like, you don't have to plan every minute around every day around your cycle, but if you can just little tweaks each time you experience that phase, I feel like people will see the benefit. People will see once they try it. They can judge it for all they want, but until they really step into that is until they really will see the benefits.
Absolutely.
So the next thing I want to jump into is astrology. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about was home, family, roots, and long-term security. And that actually translates to the fourth house. It relates to the literal place you live in, as well as the people who bring you comfort. It covers your ancestors, your memories, your past, and your sense of nostalgia. So with you having your fourth house in Aquarius, consider a new way of thinking for your family roots and long-term security. So you might need to think outside the box, more of a cutting edge way of thinking. Just trying to gain that awareness of what will help your family long-term security, how it can improve, give back to the world, and using your unique flair to come out instead of worrying about what other people will think. You have Aquarius and a little bit of Pisces. And so you have to kind of think a little bit of the Aquarius mindset. So that's that cutting edge new way of thinking, but then inspiring and uplifting others to believe in themselves. So I think an aspect of maybe how you feel like you're the provider of all things, like how you need to step up. Maybe you feel like you're trying to fill a void there.
For sure.
And thinking about how you can think of a new way to uplift them or your long-term security in a way that is comforting to them. So that's not financially.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do. And that's really interesting. I mean, like, as you know from our conversations before, like, this is definitely a lot of what's on my mind right now. And I can't claim to say that I know what that looks like yet, but I do have some ideas. Like, I have been thinking about, like, as far as my financial security, some really just very different ideas. Like, one thing that I've thought about that I would love to do is to rent out my house once my children move out, which will hopefully be within the next few years, and travel the world doing hair. I think that that would make me so happy, and I could marry my two loves together. And then I don't know if this is what that, like, the astrology is getting at, but like, I've thought maybe I could be an example to my children by showing them what it's like to take care of yourself and bring yourself joy and have joy rather than constantly feeling like I do have to make up for there not being another parent consistently in the picture. And I do have to be the provider, whatever that looks like at whatever cost to me, which to an extent I like doing. I've liked having that role and I've been so proud of myself that I've been so successful at it. But then I'm getting to a point in life where I'm starting to be like, well, what's next for me? And also this doesn't always feel great to me anymore.
Yeah. And that's great that you're listening to that because that's those beginning signs of resentment that kind of lays in there, that there's a point where you may put that on them without even realizing. And I know you already do this for your children because I've seen it firsthand. But if you can really put the inspiration and uplifting your children to believe in themselves and what their magic is, because that's really investing in them. And that's not going to cost any money, is if you cheer them on where you know their strengths are. And I honestly feel like they'll get more investment out of that, because it's going to empower them to step into what they're meant to do. And you're not going to have that like resentment of they're spending all my money, they're doing these things, or you're doing it.
That landed so well that it actually brought tears to my eyes listening to your words. And yeah, I think I do that, and I can lean into that more. And just a shift is definitely needed there. And I really appreciate your acknowledging that that is something that I'm already capable of and encouraging me in.
Yeah. You're already doing it. I already see what you do for your children. I just think that, it's when they give you those little pieces of like, oh, what do you think about this? Is maybe on the back end being like, let me look into that a little bit for them. Maybe your time is that investment of looking into something for them and taking that away from the financial aspect of it. Cause, it's hard when we put that burden on ourselves. And I see it firsthand in my, in some places in my life where you put that financial burden, and, it's not purposeful that it becomes resentful or toxic by any means, but when it starts to not feel good, it's going in that direction. And I think that self-awareness you have is a huge gift, because now it's time to pivot. And the great thing is your children are at an age where they're flying on their own and almost flying on their own. And this is probably the most impactful time for you to kind of step into that. And I know that you'll do a great job with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're right. It is the perfect time. It genuinely is. And I think that's why this interaction, this conversation and opportunity came at this time, is because this is what I'm really looking to change and figure out.
Well, I can't wait to hear all about it. So your Jupiter is also in your fourth house. And so that is ultimately your joy, abundance, optimism. And so when your Jupiter is in the sign, it is time to focus on what lights you up the most. So it is time to kind of pivot. And while I'm saying you should considering doing that for your children, you should also put yourself first on that list. Do it for yourself first, and then whatever you have left for, put it in yourself. Because when you focus on what lights you up the most, you will bring more joy and abundance into your life. And it's all about expanding those horizons. It's about faith and trusting. And when you trust that, Jupiter will help you attract what you need in that moment. It is the planet of good luck. So it can open you up to new opportunities, and it may be a time to take risks, because Jupiter wants you to go after your dreams, inspire you to reach for the stars, and let that light shine through.
Well, that's exciting. I've been actually wondering about some of that lately, because I just, through some shadow work that I've been doing on my childhood, I've realized that I am such a people pleaser that I hardly know what it is that I do like. And so given free time to myself, I would almost struggle to know what I would want to do if it wasn't for somebody else or with somebody else. And so that's been something I've been exploring a little bit and trying different things, whether it's by myself or with somebody else, but just trying to notice, what do I enjoy doing? Which sounds, I feel silly saying that, because I am 48 years old. I feel like I should have a better sense of what I like by now. But as a daughter, sister, and then very quickly after that, mother and for a time wife, I just really fell easily into the role of, well, if somebody else has a stronger preference, we'll do that. And so I think wound up almost completely unaware of my own preferences.
I think that's a common occurrence in motherhood. I think we kind of get lost in the expectations of what we're supposed to do and all the other people around us, and we come last. And I was right there with you until I honestly stopped working. And I don't think people need to stop working to uncover that. I think for me, I was at a point of such bad burnout that the only way that I could bounce back was to really focus on what lit me up, what, really brought out that joy in myself. And then I started to see the benefits of the people around me. So it feels very selfish at first. It really does. But when you can see how your joy can really bring out the best in others, it's one of those things that you're like, oh, okay, this is important. It is time to do that. And that's also where I encourage you to, beyond that morning routine list, is also just making a list of like day number, whatever day you're on. I want to go hiking today. I don't know if you've listened to my Floductivity retreat episode, but the concept is devoting 24 hours to yourself. And you plan it ahead of time, and not in a way that it's strict and you follow it by time. It's that you have a menu to choose from. You're like, this is where I'm at in my cycle. So I'm going to focus on the idea of planning, or I'm going to focus on the idea of seeing friends. There's different parts of your cycle that incorporate into it. And then you plan it in a way that you're like, the day is here. I'm going to look at this menu and I am going to flow in the day that feels best for me. And I'm just going to look at this menu and say, what am I going to do today? It's not, this is what I have to do. It's like, what feels good to me in this moment. And then when you ultimately have these lists, you don't have that decision fatigue or overwhelm. You're like, oh yeah, I know I want to do this. This is exactly what I want to do. And so having those type of resources, you can make a toolkit for everything. What are my passions? I'm going to make a toolkit. What are my workouts? I'm going to make a toolkit. And that way, when that time comes, because I always was that way. I would waste my time that I would have to myself planning or researching, and then I didn't get to actually enjoy it. So I just encourage anyone to start making these little toolkits so that when you actually get time for it, you're not sitting wasting scrolling or binging on TV, which there's always a time for that. But there's a time where investing in yourself and spending time with yourself is much more important, because you'll get a lot more rejuvenation out of that.
Absolutely. And like, yeah, I always know that binge watching one of my favorite shows is going to do the trick, or in the moment, whatever. But I want to be more than that. I don't want that to be my only source of joy. I like the idea of having a go-to list, because I can watch TV not anytime, but a lot more often than I get to do other things that really bring me a lot more.
Definitely. I always suggest for anyone, it seems like I don't know, some people feel like off-putting, but I'm like, if you can devote 24 hours to yourself and really focus on your well-being, try to avoid your phone, social media, and just see what comes from it. And your main goal is to nourish yourself. You tell those around you, like, I'm out. I'm not cooking. I'm not cleaning. I'm not driving you anywhere. Again, it takes planning. You have to kind of prep it. You have to put all the things in place and just really focus on that 24 hours for yourself. And I tell you, like, what you get from it is magnificent. It really is. It's like, if you need inspiration, it comes,
That's awesome. I haven't done that entire concept, but the closest I've come is on my birthday, which is in October, and on Mother's Day, which is in May. I do whatever I want to do for the day. And I think you spent part of my birthday with me last year. We went paddleboarding because it was 80 degrees in October, and it felt amazing to get out on the water. I love the concept of taking an entire 24. That feels like so luxurious. A whole 24 hours for me. I might make that my birthday this year. We'll see. It's coming up soon, so I'm kind of in love with that idea.
Can paddleboarding be a part of it?
No. If the weather is nice enough to paddleboard in October, I will see you out on the water. You can bet on it.
Awesome. Cool. I'll see you there. Yeah. If you want any inspiration, check out that episode. And I think there is some free printables to help you plan around it, so it's not so overwhelming. And there's just little tips in there for each season you're at. So if you know what day of your cycle you'll be on, it just kind of helps. Like, oh yeah, I do want to socialize and go paddleboarding with my friend. Or no, I want to be in a room and it's dark and,
Right.
like not be bothered.
Yes.
You can decide what one you want. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So kind of jumping back to Jupiter and it being in Aquarius, you tend to be excited by community action or radical change, new inventions, innovative ideas, or any opportunity to stand out and be different, which I loved that. The first thing that comes to my mind is like how you really embedded your values into your work, what you were bringing to the table. And so I really feel like that brought a whole nother viewpoint. And what true abundance may mean to you is researching what is most fascinating to you for the purpose of benefiting others and furthering society for others. I see that with what you're doing for your children. I know you've mentioned some things with that. So I think you're embodying some of that. I just want you to consider doing a little bit more for yourself too.
Yeah, that also lands very well. Like, and novelty, innovative ideas, things that are of benefit to, like, especially other women and other women business owners. That things like that really excite me. It has been suggested to me that I get into coaching. I don't know if that's something that I would actually enjoy if it were my paying job. I don't know, or if I'm at a place where I'm emotionally ready to have that be enjoyable as a paying job. But I do love the idea of doing something that I love that's beneficial to other people. That resonates with me so deeply. And you're right, my values, that already is in line with my values, and I do bring that into my business. That's how my business was born, was wanting to marry my values with my work.
And I love that. The downside of having Jupiter in Aquarius is you may be considered being so out there that others can't catch up with your line of thinking, or just rebelling to rebel.
I for sure have those qualities. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I think learned to rein them in. Certainly my rebelling to rebel. And then I think I have a good awareness of, like, some of my ideas are too out there. And like, I still like them, but I can recognize that they're not aligned with the space that I'm in right now. So I wouldn't try to force them. I'll just give you an example to make it concrete. I think that tipping is not something that I want to be a part of my business because of its historical roots in racism and sexism. However, where I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, people aren't ready for me to raise my prices 20% and say, I'm not taking tips. It would be considered rude and offensive. In 5 years, I believe that will change, but it is an innovative idea that I have that I don't think the space that I live in is ready for. They were ready for gender neutral pricing, which I love, and that has gone amazingly well. But not all of my ideas are right for the time and space that I'm in, and I can get okay with it.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but the salon I came from was a non-tipping salon in Ohio. And so there are more salons in Ohio that do that. And their concept is they bring a higher quality of service, like a professional. Like, you don't tip a doctor, you don't tip a chiropractor. And that's kind of the concept. But I do feel like there is a definite difference between hair salons in Ohio and hair salons here.
And between Midwesterners and Southerners. I think Midwesterners can, they're still very polite and kind, but they can kind of see the sensibleness of that. Whereas Southerners, it can come across as rude.
Yeah.
To not accept a tip, or to say, no, I'm just worth 20% more than that and deal with it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's, like, knowing that the effort you put into it. And if a tip is optional, you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference? But, I'm not going to lie. When I came down south, I was like, tips again, hallelujah,
right.
But I do see both sides of the coin, or I would not have worked at a salon that was non-tipping. So, and I will just say the gifts were out of this world because I feel like clients wanted to make up to the whole idea with gifts.
They still wanted to express their love for you in another way, and their appreciation, which is wonderful. That's beautiful.
So yeah, it's an adjustment. I think you can do it when the time is right, but I do think you'll have the discernment when that moment is right for you. And it could be one of those where you implement it for new clients. Like, they have the new non-tipping, and it could just be one of those things. You see how it goes, and, it's a way for you to test it out. So you can always consider that.
Well, if I take my show on the road to Europe, I'm going to have to get used to charging more and no tips, because it is not customary in Europe to tip. So people are paid a living wage.
Well, speaking of that, I know you said that is kind of taking one of your passions. I want to touch on the idea of pleasure, fun, creativity, and inner child. And that translates to the 5th house. And so, with yours being almost equal parts Capricorn and Sagittarius, it sounds kind of against the whole idea, but creating a system, structure, program, or curriculum that helps others reach their goal as efficiently as possible may help you kind of get that creativity out, but also balancing it with chasing your curiosities and bringing back to what you've learned to help others expand what's possible. So that's kind of a way that you can touch into that a little bit. Your North Node also lives in that fifth house. And so your North Node is ultimately your greater potential and the type of energy you're meant to embrace. And that is in Capricorn. So that is creating a system, a structure, program, or curriculum that helps others reach their goals. So ultimately, that is what you're meant to do.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. That's my south node or my north node?
So the North Node is what you're meant to embody, and the South Node is what you're meant to overcome and move away from.
So yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I think I already knew that my south node was in Cancer and my North Node was in Capricorn. And it is just like very obvious to me that I spent the first half of my life like literally taking care of other people. Like I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. I took care of my younger siblings, and then I had to step into this role of being the sole provider. And so I kind of joke that the first half of my life was mommy energy, and now I've got my daddy energy on. And that is just a way for me of thinking of it that makes sense and like feels authentic.
Yes. Good. You're meant to learn how to give your family and the people you care about a little more breathing room while you focus on your own success in ways that will allow you to make a greater impact around the world around you by harnessing your ambition and desire for personal security to fuel you. So that is exactly it.
I love that. I love that.
So the last aspect in your astrology chart that I want to touch is your evolution and how you'll make a bigger difference in others' lives. And that is your Pluto. And your Pluto is in Libra. So it is meant for you to overcome a fear of standing up for what is just and fair, obsessions with injustices, make big decisions, partnerships, or lack thereof. You make the biggest difference for others by helping them focus on the beauty, the peace, and the harmony that already exists in the world and manifest more of that.
Yeah, according to that, I'm already living that. I feel like that is kind of what I did. I felt like there wasn't a safe place for my clients to be, and I opened a place that I felt like was emotionally and physically safe for them, and that to me felt just and right and to a higher purpose. And then what was the other part?
Beauty.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's obvious. I love that. I love bringing people peace and beauty. And people, especially during the pandemic, but even still now, I don't know if it's something energetically in the world, but a lot of people come in really angry or stressed or hectic. And like, I love when I can have somebody come in that state and just hold space for them, but not in a way that is taking away from me. I think of it as being a human Xanax, where I just direct peace and love and calm at that person until they really can't help but feel it. You know, I'm touching them, my voice, just I try to embody that peace. And then the beauty bit of it, of course, like they're leaving looking more beautiful than when they came in, you know, and feeling more beautiful, hopefully, and lifted of whatever in the outside world was stressing them out. They can kind of like drop it at the door for that couple hours that they're with me and just chill.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful and I think that's powerful. And I can probably guarantee not a lot of people have that outside of their hairstylist or a therapist. You know what I mean? Those are the two aspects. So if you don't have a good hairstylist or you don't have a therapist, you might not even be getting that. So I think it's great that you're kind of implementing your design, how you've been built into your life. But I also have seen, the more I look into people's charts, is when they become more self-aware, they are probably living a lot of their design because they're like, wow, this feels good. I'm going to follow it. Oop, this doesn't feel good. I'm not going to follow it. And so the only time, you know, like even for myself, it's like if I keep seeing a reoccurring pattern, it's like I haven't learned the lesson. And a lot of times when I look in my human design or my astrology, I will look and I'll be like, oop, yep, it's right there. And I've been ignoring it. So not always do we figure out all the lessons that we need to in that, but kudos to you that you've had enough self-awareness to drop into those gifts for you to tap into.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it feels good. I do worry a lot about like what comes next, or like, am I realistic? Or, you know, I'm such a big picture person, so that when I think about the future, it often feels a little overwhelming because I will have huge ideas, but no idea which one is the right one to follow, and then how to get from here to there if I could even make a decision. And so, like
Yeah.
what you were saying, I had the good fortune of being kind of pushed into a place change. I don't know that I would have made that change had I not felt unsafe and that just something needed to be done when I opened up my own space. But that's what I worry about. Will it always be catastrophe that motivates me, or can I figure it out some other way?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping sharing some human design aspects with you, it will help you, because there are aspects in your human design that help you make decisions and how you should take action. So hopefully maybe some of this will give you some clarity or give you some confirmation of oh yeah, that does feel right. I just didn't trust it. And there was a lot of that in my own personal human design. And until I started really embodying it and living it. And it's not one of those things oh, I know my human design, I'm going to live it today. It's just like living with your cycle. It's like a little bit here and there you realize to trust it and kind of lean into it and just kind of use that. So let's dive in.
I'm very excited to dive in because I have Googled my human design chart before, and like most people I think saw it and was like, whoa, it's like a bunch of hieroglyphics, and I can't make heads or tails of this. And so I am extremely excited to have you walk me through any aspect of it.
Perfect. And for anyone listening, if you want to know more about human design, I have a free interactive chart to teach you about each type, a lot of the important aspects. You do have to get your own personal chart ahead of time, but my chart that I've made is interactive. All the buttons are clickable, and it teaches you as you go through, and you can use your chart as reference, and you can go to karadempsey.com/HD. All right. So you are a generator, and I will tell you that most people that are I'm a generator, because it's more of the common, but there is so many magical things about a generator, especially because they have such a powerful force, and we need a lot of generators in this world. And then beyond that, there's so many little aspects in your chart that make you special. So as a generator, you have a life force energy at your disposal. It is a part of your life to be busy and utilize your force, no matter whether your work is for work or recreational. Your energy needs some kind of occupation. It wants to be used. It can find it challenging to remain inactive for a long period of time, and it's not good for your health either. It is open to cooperation, interaction, and communication with others. And so that's ultimately what it means to be a generator. Now, as a generator, when you are not living in your design, you will feel frustrated. So anytime you feel frustrated, that is a moment for you to say, am I using my decision strategy? Am I taking action like I'm supposed to? And just think about what you're doing in that moment. I am a manifesting generator, so frustration is a part of mine. Because I'm a manifesting generator, I have multiple parts, but it's one of those, if I'm rushing through traffic, my design, there's some aspects of my design is to be in the now, which is literally my life lesson. I have a really hard time with it. And so it's that moment of oh, I'm supposed to somehow find enjoyment in this traffic. And how do you do that? I'm not sure, but it's just a reminder, take a moment and maybe you'll find that enjoyment somehow or another. Put on a song, dance it out.
Listen to
Understand.
Floductivity.
Yeah, that's it. Listen to the podcast, get some information. But yes, your frustration is a sign for you to just take a moment and kind of think about what you're doing and see how you can kind of tap into your design a little bit better. As your strengths, it is essential to understand that life and life's energy always unfolds as a response to the environment. Like a plant's life force responds to light and other kinds of environmental conditions. Your life force reacts to and thereby knows exactly whether or not your energy wants to be spent on a certain demand or issue. So you should really know within, yes, I want to put my energy here, or no. And we'll get into your authority, which I call it your intuition, but it's an aspect of your intuition. And so when you listen, your energy will be used at the utmost satisfaction. So that is the strength of when you know you should go with it and when it doesn't feel good. One of the biggest things I've done with my human design that I found is that I don't commit to very much these days. Like there are a few things that I actually fully commit to that I'll say, yes, I'm going to do that. Usually it's I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm.
Unless if I get a yes, if it's a no, I usually will still say, like, I'll have to let you know to that. And so maybe it's kind of taking a step back and thinking and saying when someone asks you something, like, I'll think about it. And then you can make that decision when it gets closer instead of committing to so much.
I love that. And that is so helpful. I've been trying to do it more to pay attention to like how I feel, not what I think, because I can kind of talk myself into doing things I don't want to do, but like really tapping into like viscerally, how do I feel about this request or idea?
Good.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I still say yes to a lot of stuff I don't want to do.
Yeah. It's that boundary thing. It's like putting those boundaries in place. And honestly, it's so freeing to say, like, I'll let you know. I'm not going to make that decision right now. Because it's not telling someone no. And then, unless if they become super annoying and keep asking you about it, like sometimes they'll forget about it or they just think the I don't know is a no. And you're like, oh, I got out of that. So, and as a generator, one of your weaknesses, it could be that you allow yourself to be lured into doing things or be ordered to do things that may prevent your specialized generating powers from unfolding properly. So it's like saying yes to the things that you shouldn't. And then a lot of times that can deplete your energy.
Yeah, that rings very true.
Yes. And it could be social pressure. It could be certain dynamics in family. There's so many aspects to that. So the recommendation is to listen to your life force attentively. You want to be asked, you want to be invited. Should you invest your energy in what you're being asked to do? I should avoid making decisions in your head. It should be out of your body. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Your mind is a valuable resource that makes your actions intelligent and efficient, but the mind does not supply the energy and should not be the most important decision-making authority. Out of all the human designs, none of them are in the mind. They're all in the body. So just know that if you're trying to rationalize it in your mind, it's probably a no.
Yeah, it probably is. If I'm having to rationalize it in my mind, I'm starting to learn that it's probably a no.
When you feel powerless and exhausted, know that in that moment, you're devoting your energy to something that's not suitable for yourself and you're abusing your life force and then you're depleting your energy. So again, I think once people see the benefit when you're feeding this life force, like they'll see it and they'll see where something that you maybe took away from them before, like they'll be able to use your power in another way. And so it might take some time for you to figure out what that is for them, but save that alternative transfer to those closest to you.
Yeah, I think that alleviates a lot of the guilt associated with like saying no when something feels like a no, especially when it comes to family,
Correct.
I think that'll be very helpful.
And the big thing is it should really go in order of yourself, your family, extended family, and wherever you want to put your job, and that you may do that for yourself. Everybody's devotion to their job kind of fits differently. So now just a quick thing about a single definition. I am also a single definition. Ultimately, we can process information quicker. We aren't energetically seeking someone to bridge our disconnections in the chart. So we are pretty content on our own for the most part. So that's what single definition means.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. We both are. We really are.
Yeah. Happy to be by myself.
Love other people, but fine hanging out with me. Very fine.
Yes. I had to teach myself. That was one thing I had to teach myself. And that's when I realized these superpowers that I had. Like I didn't, because I was so busy pleasing everybody else and doing all the things that were expected of me. I did not know how to be a single definition. And then once I did, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I will be in my quiet room with the door shut and my headphones on. Can't hear you. So now we're going to talk about strategy, and that's ultimately how you should take action. And yours is to respond. So the strategy to respond is through response to find satisfaction and avoid frustration. So you ultimately should not go for something. You should wait for something to come to you. But it could be like, I've been wanting to go to a new restaurant and someone mentions it. you're responding to that. It would be harder for you to go and search all the restaurants in Raleigh and decide which one's good for you. So it is one of those, like, you respond to something inside of yourself.
Well, that's good. That's my inclination anyway, to be perfectly honest. And that's how I've spent most of my life, is like things float by and I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then we're going to jump into the inner authority. This is the most important thing, I think, in human design. And it's ultimately how you should make decisions. And we both have the sacral. And so it's like in your gut, but like lower gut. It's like you should have a aha or a no, or it's a not right now. And so if someone asks you and you don't get a yes or a no, honestly, you should just say, let me think about it. And when the time comes, they ask again and, just say, well, right now I can't make a decision. So if you need an answer right now, it's a no. And it's hard, but I will tell you, I've had to make some really hard decisions and I've used my sacral, and ultimately they've been the best decisions that I've made, even though they were hard. So it's a heck yes, a heck no, or a not right now. And when you do commit to something that doesn't light you up, your energy will be depleted. And so then that depletion is going to kind of filter over into other places of your life. So you might be overcommitting to someone here, and then someone else is going to get this depleted version of you because you haven't kind of set that boundary for yourself.
So tell me this, like, how have you personally learned to listen to that sacral?
Honestly, I think the best thing you could do is privately in a room, give yourself 2 questions and say, like, do I want Chinese food today? And you just sit and you feel it in your body. And it's one of those things, like, connecting with your sacral is a relationship. So it might be hard to connect with at first, but I refer to it as a friend. If you have a friend that's like, hey, I want to hang out, and you keep being like, later, that friend's going to probably hide away and not really reach out to you anymore. And then once you're like, oh yeah, let's hang out, we'll hang out every once in a while. It's like the more you build this relationship with your sacral, the more predominant it comes through.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have done that, and I've actually coached like my children to do that, to try on a decision, like to pretend that you've already made the decision and then see how you feel about it. And sometimes that's really the only way I can like trick myself into making a decision, is to pretend to have made it already and then see, oh, am I relieved or am I regretful?
I think it's hard. I know that's really helpful that you're doing that for your children. I think the hard part about that is if someone is an emotional response, they're not going to feel it in their body.
That makes sense. Yeah, I do feel it in my body when I pretend to make a decision.
I think it was one of the biggest things about it was confirming to me that I've always had this sacral response, but it took me realizing, oh, I mean, even how I make decisions, I know instantly if it's a yes or a no. I might just tell you maybe because my body doesn't know yet. And my husband, he needs days to think about it. And it took me knowing his human design to say, oh, you take days. And he's like, yeah, I've been telling you that for 20 years. You don't need my human design. And I'm like, I know, but I think when you know a way, it's really hard to understand that how someone else makes decisions is different. And so it's understanding that because it feels normal to you, someone else might not have that. So I'd be curious to know your children's.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah,
I've
by no means claim all my advice to them has always been helpful, but
yes.
But yeah, I know that's very true. Like honoring what works for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of it has just been looking at it and being like, oh, that's how they're built. Okay, all right. And it was, for me, it was confirming like, oh man, I have a Gemini moon. No wonder. Okay. You know what I mean? Like that was one thing that it took me really diving into my chart to accept it, because I fought it and I didn't like it. And then it was like, I can't change it. I can't be reborn at a different time with a different moon, so how can I use it to my advantage instead of thinking it's something for me to overcome? Yeah. So your wounds in your human design is that you have to give in to the will of other people and suppress your own wishes.
No kidding. Oh yeah, it feels like that's what we've been talking about pretty much this whole time. So.
Yep. So, there's so much confirmation. And
it's again comforting to know like, okay, I'm wired that way. That's my lesson to learn. Not like I'm like a screw up or, it's validating.
Yeah, it's like, It is validating. It's knowing, okay, I know this now. Is there something I can do? And it's like, again, back to my Gemini moon, like I am going to be triggered. How I deal with the trigger, that's my lesson. So it is one of those of like, now I know that I can kind of hopefully, pivot how I react to it and not react in the way that my Gemini moon would want, because she's a crazy one.
I got a Gemini as a kid, so I am familiar with that.
Yes.
I bet you can guess which one.
Is it Quinn?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, I have to like think in my body before I jump into that. Well, I have a Scorpio sun, so yeah. My dad was a Scorpio too.
He's so precious though. He is.
People will say like, he's so good. And I'm like, yeah, he is. He goes up and down, the emotion roller coaster. So your role in life is the gate of intuitive awareness that ensures survival. And so using it for its utilization. So the ability to make the best out of a situation, as one accepts that intuition alone is not always sufficient to ensure a successful process. And the shadow of it is the disappointment that comes with recognizing that intuitive clarity can, in fact, recognize futile action, but not avoid it. So it's about the fear of the future and just stay alert, pay attention to the now. I also have this gate. So it is one of those that staying in the now will help really harness your design and kind of stepping out of that, what's the future going to bring? And I know that's something that we've talked about. And
yeah,
that's probably why when we talk, a lot of this comes up for both of us because we both have this gate.
That's really interesting because it's funny because as we were kind of saying before, there's a tendency to, or at least for me, to think that everybody's the same as me. And I have noticed like other people are not as worried about the future as I am at all. Like just in general, I don't think people spend as many hours or minutes or days of their life being stressed about like when nothing's wrong and everything's going well, instead of enjoying the beautiful now. I spend a very large amount of energy worrying about what's next, even when there's not a need for what's next in the moment.
Yeah, mine is translated to planning. I think that's how I try to control the situation. And yours is just more about, from what I've gathered, it's just more of like the thinking about it, being in your head about it. And so really our best way to utilize this channel is to just use your intuition, problem solving, and to know that you'll be taken care of if you focus on the now and what feels good now versus really getting in our heads about it. Because anytime that I've had a block in my personal journey, anytime that I've said like, I'm going to surrender into this, the solution comes. It's like anytime I'm fighting against it and I'm in my head and I'm trying to plan around it, it's like the universe is sitting back going like, ha 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 ha. She hasn't learned this lesson yet. Like as soon as she focuses on the now, like we'll give her the solution. And so my suggestion would be to really think about narrowing down what you're really worried about and then kind of surrendering into the universe to show you the way and to overcome that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that makes so much sense. Absolutely. And it's a beautiful reframing of that tendency, like, I think that's something I would love to try and.
It's hard. It's like really just, I don't know. I haven't fully figured it out yet, but like I said, when I'm like, oh yeah, let me look at my human design, and it's like one of my channels, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta really harness into that. And I think too, it's like sometimes the universe showing you someone else what you want. I know Gabby Bernstein calls it driftwood. So like if you see someone traveling the world in Europe and doing hair, it's showing you what's possible for yourself. To know that like, oh, the universe is showing me the possibility of that's what I desire, that's what's going to happen. So let me just enjoy right now. When that time comes, that opportunity will come to me if I kind of flow into it. It's like when we fight against it, that the universe doesn't give us what we're trying to manifest.
I love that.
Yeah. So another aspect of your role in life, it embodies deliberate and bold initiation. It's the willpower and vitality in times of crisis to meet challenges alone and not succumb to the general panic. You're going to implement the shadow side. It's the ego power to face challenges alone, which may provoke and strengthen the challenger. So it's again kind of like, let's not freak out about this. How can I ask for what I need now? And then if your ego's like, how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do for it?
Yeah, all of that resonated.
And it's having the courage. Yeah. Ultimately, it all comes down to courage.
I think I have in the past had moments where I have done that. I've been like pushed to a brink of having to do that. Like leaving my job, leaving my marriage were points where I was pushed to a brink. And I do think I am independent, and that's wonderful. I can also be independent to a flaw. I can also demonize somebody who I'm struggling with. So all of those tendencies are things that I can recognize in myself.
I am going to wrap it up with like two very important things. It's ultimately your mission, what your mission is to do. And so first, I'm going to kind of start with the profile, and you are a guiding star. So authenticity means a lot to you. You can become a role model and offer your special talents in the fields that suits you. That means by your individual devotion, you make new things visible. You make new things visible to the world, which will contribute to the changes. You probably feel like you've been an authority from the moment you were born as the oldest. That is usually the case. You're a natural born role model whose wisdom, perception, and vision can be a gift and a stabilizing force in your world. You're one of those people who can see what needs to happen and how to bring the missing pieces to form a bigger picture. You have a tendency to take charge. If it may feel like you have to do everything and leaving you to micromanage, constantly absorbing information and knowledge, and a great visionary of your time, finding a balance between spirituality and earthly connections. It can be frustrating that other people might not see the bigger picture like you do. You're wise beyond years, and you need a place of solitude and rest. And then your mission. So the crosses ultimately mean your mission. And so your mission is about being intuitively alert in order to explore the secrets of the inner truth and the universal principles. You carry the intuitive knowledge of novelties, has the information, has the potential to inspire and maybe shock others. You make this information available to other people and bring it into life. It is essential to solve problems intuitively and make the best out of every situation. That way you can face a challenge alone and keep your clarity of mind. By working on the details with discipline, you're able to express the brilliance of thought and formulate the universal principles, which you find in a way that will inspire other people. It is your task to announce inspiring novelties with the clarity and spread them throughout the world in an exemplary manner. So I've found that it is not until the last month or so that I've actually started living my mission. So I knew it, I've read about it, and then it wasn't until recently that I was doing kind of my wording and stuff for my coaching program. And then I was like, oh my God, it took me years of understanding my human design before I stepped into it. So it's one of those things that I tell people, having the access to things about your human design so that you can always kind of come back to it and look at it. And sometimes those things don't come forth until certain parts of your life, like you were saying before, like the role you were before and the role that you are now. So I always say be open to it, even if it sounds a little different, a little off. So yeah, that's the most of it. You have a couple specializations I'll touch on. Following your own convictions by using your energy in an authentic way. So the persuader, and I feel like you have harnessed that energy just with your business. I've seen it take action from afar.
Thank you.
You have a specialization of optimization. So you take pleasure in improvement and having a talent for optimizing systems on the basis of sound judgment. I think there are some things that you spoke to me about where that's probably going to come into fruition at some point and maybe could support your retirement.
Yeah.
With that, it's taking a lot of what you've been doing with your own work and job and kind of turning it into a system to help other people.
I love that.
You have a specialization of power, and that means you have alert intuition while being aware of one's own life-oriented strength. And the last one is aesthetics, the beauty of harmony between intuitive awareness and authentic behavior. design.
That's amazing how spot on it really seems to be. So many things about my basic nature are just like, so I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's me. That's it. Those are my struggles. Those are my strengths. Those are my weaknesses. Has been really interesting, all of it. But in particular that part, because that was something I had never been able to delve into on my own in any way. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is overwhelming. And I think that's why when I started to dive into human design, I felt like there needed to be a little bit of a bridge. Like I've done a one-on-one coaching session. I've done a group coaching session. And with this concept that I have, and I'm still working out details, so don't hold me to it in this episode if it's not out or haven't come through with it. But one of the coaching programs that I imagine in my mind that have come to me has this aspect of an interactive human design chart. So people can ultimately come back through and look and say, okay, what was that she said? Let me look at it. Where was it? And be able to teach people visually, because I'm such a visual learner that sometimes just hearing it, it's great to hear it because it's confirmation, but I need something to be able to physically go back and look. And so one of the coaching programs that I have, it's like a 6-month coaching program. And towards the end, because the amount of investment I have to put into someone to be able to create these is a lot. And so the only way that I think I can have these big charts is to have someone book with me for 6 months. And then I can create this customized chart that literally is nowhere else. I'm hoping as I work through this, it comes to fruition, because anytime I tell anybody, they're like, yes.
I know, me too. I'm like, that's amazing. I love that.
If I did them separately, I feel like I'd be doing the person a disservice, because I literally get to know someone's soul in the process of it. And so reading it doesn't do it justice. I feel like I have to coach someone through it, because there's so much to look at when it comes to it. And so that is a part. I'm also doing the concept with an astrology chart too, is because there's so many aspects and points to it that's overwhelming. So my goal is just to take this amazing information to help people figure out who they are and how they operate, and just ultimately use it as a tool. Like my goal is to teach someone, and then they can fly on their own and they can use this stuff and be the best version of themselves. So
that's so amazing. I'm really excited for when it comes out. I think it's going to be a tool that helps so many people.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Denise, it was a pleasure speaking to you as always. More formal. I wouldn't call it formal, but less chill and more business than normal.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time that it took for you to do this for me. And it's, as I said, incredibly validating. It feels really good to hear and has definitely given me a launching point for a lot more to think about.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and we will chat soon. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If this was your first time, welcome. And if you joined me for previous episodes, thank you so much for coming back. Before you go, make sure you share my podcast with a friend if you haven't yet. Those few seconds make a big impact on my podcast, and I'd be grateful for the support. This was such a fun episode with Denise. I love that I can bring my friend into one of my passions, podcasting. If you want to learn more about the Floductivity coaching, you can head to karadempsey.com/28. If you're on the homepage, you can click offerings and you will find out just the different things that I offer at this very moment. I have limited spaces for free coaching on my podcast, just like I did with Denise today. You can book a discovery call on how we can create a game plan for us to work together. I have a 3-session bundle at the moment. We meet together 3 times in a 4-week span, and I really dive deep into those different modalities that we spoke about in today's episode and how that can propel you forward. I hope in the next few months I will have my Floductivity coaching program that is 24 weeks intensive program, but I can tell you my goal is to teach you how to best operate, that you can fly on your own with these different modalities and have those resources to refer back to so you know how to utilize your power. If you're looking for a stylist in Raleigh, Denise accommodates to gender-neutral pricing. I will have all of our information in the show notes, and all the links mentioned will be at karadempsey.com/28. We'll chat soon.